Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Killing Eve, Season 4, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with the whole Constantine and Pam situation. Once again, we never got to see the early days of Constantine and Villanelle because it was already an established relationship. I talked about that a little last episode. But obviously being suited with Pam, it was just they weren't on the same wavelength. He's telling her how it is. It's like, right, we're not friends. Maybe because he had to lay that groundwork. Maybe he always has to lay down that groundwork. But I guess because the way him and Villanelle's relationship ended up developing, it's like, I'm not going to have a repeat of that. So this is how it is. Meet me an hour. Okay, I want you to push that lady. It's like, what? No, why? It's like, don't ask why, because I told you to. The point is just, you do something because you're told to, because that's the whole point of being an assassin, because it's like, oh, how many people have killed? She's like, one, and it's like, oh, so your brother's the only person you've killed. She's got the potential. I was about to go potentiality, but she has a potential. But she's never really, and even then, you only killed your brother because you can. The fact is you can go there is one thing, but the fact is you killed him because your brother kind of an asshole. So like, it wasn't that big of a leap. But for you just to kill some stranger, she needs to kind of get over that next hump to be the next great assassin. So she doesn't want to do that. So Constantine's like, oh, you're worthless and you're nothing special. Go. So he tries to call up and threaten Helen, like, okay, you let me go back to my life as that mayor, or I basically call to Andres and explain all the stuff that you're up to. And she's like, oh, cool, you know Paul, man. Why is she referencing Paul? Yeah, you framed Paul for that 6 million euros that went missing. Let's see how the 12 find out when it was actually you that was robbing him. So, once again, going back to last episode where she was like, oh, what makes you the best person for this job is you're the easiest to blackmail. Oh, I'm just kidding. You're just really good at the job. I said it then. It was the first thing, obviously. And I was like, yeah, you are the easiest person to blackmail because you've done so much stuff and you got caught with your hands in the cookie jar way too many times. She's got too much against you, especially, the very notion of you don't get away from the 12. You're always a part of the 12. She even says it to herself. She says it about Villanelle as well. There's no getting out. So once again, it makes you wonder, is that why she's potentially looking for the head of the 12? Because she wants to be free to do her own thing, never have any other masters to have to answer to, want to be her own person, just kind of like Villanelle kind of wanted to in her own regard. Maybe that's her end goal. We still don't know what it is Helen actually wants. At least I don't feel like. We get some, but it's like hard to say like what's real and what's just her dancing around and her just like playing, How much of it is real? But continuing it, we saw an interesting side of Pam because we actually saw her like on that ride. She was getting like whoa, and kind of freaking out a little, but also smiling and laughing. I'm like, in every interaction we've ever had with this character, she's always had this very stoic demeanor. So to see her like that, even when it was like taking abuse from her brother, she's like, right. She never like expressed herself. And in this moment to see her smiling and laughing, it takes you back a little bit. I don't know what it was, but I guess she found that spark she needed to feel alive to do this job. So she shows Constantine, I've got what it takes. Don't underestimate me. So Constantine's impressed. And so I guess going forward, we're going to see him training and having her kill people to get more associated with taking orders and, getting her more and more proficient till she becomes like the next Villanelle. I don't know if the end result is going to be them eventually having her kill Villanelle as like her final test. Like, right, I need you to kill Villanelle to be like her permanent replacement. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Which is funny considering like Helen went out of her way to bust Villanelle out. Because when she's like, oh, I'm going to have a call. I'm going to use my one call. I'm like, who you want to call? It's like, oh, I guess you still are decently in decent, like, connection with Helen. I'm like, you did kill Rion last season. So that's what I'm like. Does she not know that you did that? Does she not care? Plus, you're your flippant nature about this whole being an assassin thing. You think she wouldn't be all about it, but she's like, how do I can't really intimidate you because that's not going to work. Can't throw money at you because you don't do this for money. So what do I? It's like, no, you're wrong. More money, give me money. And even then, Helen was kind of taken back, like, oh, you straight up were like, no, give me money. And it's like, right, she was given a target, and it's like, who is this target? I figured it wasn't going to be Eve. I was actually curious. I was like, who is it? And I was like, is it Constantine? It's like, no, she just sent Constantine out to do something else, so why would she kill him? The target was Carolyn. That's interesting. Like, despite everything, it's like, oh, we're constantly, these characters are always constantly finding their way back into each other's lives. So, Carolyn's in Cuba, Havana specifically, to check on the dude that survived. I'm under the impression the person that tried to kill him as well as the other people was Helen, but I guess it's like, right, she probably hired out to do that. Because Helen seems like she is the type of person that can get her hands dirty if she wants to. So I guess I thought they were explaining that she was the one actually doing this, but maybe she like hired out, or maybe she did do them directly. It has to be like if she had to hire someone else to do it. I mean, that's interesting. Maybe I guess he stopped breathing at one point in time. I mean, it must be pretty hard to breathe through all the pain and having your toes literally shoved so far up your nostril that they literally had to sew his nose back on because it was mincemeat. Makes sense. I guess I didn't think about the logistics of it, of like, yeah, every time she shoved one up there, it was like probably like spanning until it like broke and snapped his nose. You're like, ugh. Just explaining it and thinking about it just like makes my skin crawl. There's just certain things like, when things get pretty grotesque in the show, there's even things that you're just like, that's metal as hell, but also it's like, damn, that, you know, for me, eye stuff always gets me. I think eye stuff is like the thing I kind of like cringe at the most, because it makes me the most uncomfortable, makes my skin crawl. This nose thing is pretty damn close. I was actually thinking later on with Villain, I was like, oh, I can find other things to shove into small holes. I was like, at first I was like, okay, that's many different ways I could. I was thinking like, are you going to cut off his fingers and shove them up his penis? The fact is, maybe that speaks volumes about me, that the fact is, but I think that's like the next level thing that I'm like, maybe because it just seemed like that's where she was going to go next. It's like, right, here are toes going up your nose. But she was like, no, I'm going to cut off your fingers and shove them also up your nose, even though your nose is already super jacked up. It's like, cool, you had 10 toes, got 10 fingers that can go up there too. And these fingers are longer than your toes and everything too, so it's going to be a little more, ugh. But before we really get to that, she was sent, like I said, sent to kill Carolyn. And I love Carolyn, like, oh, it's you, Villanelle. And it's like, really? A wrench? Come on, this isn't you. It's like, and even alludes to, I've known you, not even just when I met you back in season 1 in the prison. I've actually met you back when you were at the orphanage. And it's a conversation I didn't talk about last episode with her therapy session with Martin that I should have. That was a very key, important part to that conversation that I forgot to talk about, was Villanelle wondering whether or not she was made this way. And Martin was kind of saying not really. Like, he didn't believe in the whole... It's a age-old question of nature versus nurture. And she was wondering, was she born evil? And this kind of plays into that question, because that's why Villanelle didn't kill her. It's like, right, prove that you did actually meet me when I was a little girl. And it turns out a little girl pissed her off. She took a necklace, a bracelet thing that she had while the little girl was asleep, tied it around her finger to the point that her finger went black because it was cutting off circulation all night. They tried to cut it off, but they were pretty much cutting flesh at that point because it was tied that tight. I was like, that is sadistic. And even Villanelle was like, I don't remember that, but... And it's like, right, do you remember what you asked afterwards? It's like, you asked, could you see the finger? And it's like, and for Villanelle, it's like, right, so I was evil even from a little girl. It's not, because she was under the impression, like, right, I'm the way I am now because they made me this way. I guess it's like a lot of her younger years she blocked out, maybe, you know, whether that's just everything she went through recently made her go like, right, she probably picks and cherry picks in her mind of who she is, you know? Because I'm sure, like, the Oksana stuff, like, you know, with her, the very inappropriate relationship she had with her teacher, like, maybe, and even that, like, I was like, that was pretty, yeah, but wasn't that you as, like, a teenager? But I guess maybe she's like, right, they had already gotten their hooks into me by then, maybe, so maybe that's her justification. Like, it just seemed like you weren't necessarily cherry-picking, but I think she's thinking, along the way, like, that was, like, life had kind of led me down that route. To be fair, you might have to also consider, like, I mean, obviously it played some role in being abandoned by your mother. I'm sure that played roles, and that was after everything that went down with her mom like leaving her and everything. So I'm sure that played some role. So it wasn't like 100% nature, but in her mind it probably is a lot more nature than she would ever think it was. She probably thought it was a lot of nurture, and just like my upbringing and everything molded me into who and whatnot. Wait, you're telling me even at a young age, before all that, I really was kind of messed up like that? But I love Caroline being like, why get so caught up on trying to be good? Why not just be good at what you're good at? And she's like, maybe I'm even only saying this now because like I have a literal concussion from you smacking me over the head with a wrench. But because for Carolyn, it's like, why fight nature? Like, it's like, right, being good's supposed to be natural. It's like, no. Killing is natural, animalistic instincts in humans. We just, for societal purposes, is how she's spinning it. I do not agree with it, but, it's like, from a very prehistoric, like, very, like, animalistic purview, it's like, yeah, killing is just, like, it's there in humans, and we bury it with, like, what society has created of that's a big no-no. So it's like, why bury what is essentially an instinct in you, which apparently you're really, really good at it. So are you going to bash my head in? Let's go back and have some food. So they get to talking, and it's like, right, it is interesting they would come full circle again, where it's like, I think it came up last season as well, but it's like, oh, like, are we back? We had that conversation about, oh, do you want to work for me again? I'm like, we're coming full circle with that conversation. It's like, that conversation keeps circling around, because it's like, right, came up in season 1. I can't remember. I think it came up in season 2. I don't remember now. A lot of season 2. Like, I didn't get a chance to rewatch season 2. It's weird. I only rewatched season 1 and 3 just because, like, I just could not squeeze in the time to rewatch everything. So I was just like, I started season 1. I was like, I should have just rewatched season 3. But then I was like, I remember bits and pieces of season 2, but I really should have rewatched season 2. At some point, when this is all said and done, I'll go back and rewatch season 2 at some point, and then rewatch season 4 just to kind of have the complete rewatch of the show to some extent. It's the weirdest way I went about it. Tangents and all that aside. But it definitely came up last season about like, well, because she went to Carolyn this time, be like, cool, I'll take the job. But Carolyn was like, no, you're not really in a position that you're against killing and stuff like that. What good are you to me? So it is interesting that this has been a thread and a through line the entire show. So I think that's fascinating. But I love Carolyn being like, right, you'll tell me who sent you after me. I know, like, why would I do that? It's because you like me. It's like, that's very presumptuous. But yeah, it was Helene. It's like, huh, interesting. So, and now Caroline's trying to figure out why is that. So, and then she also sicks Villanelle on that guy, which that guy sucks. The way he, like, the way he talks about, he's kind of a vile human being in him. I love the way he just kind of made him an irredeemable douchebag. The way he like had, I was almost expecting Carolyn to like light up his cigar and smoke it herself, or shove it in his messed up nose or something. But she's like, right, that was pretty messed up of you, and just walked away because it's like, right, got to keep my calm and composure because I need this information out of him. But leaves it to Villanelle, who starts slicing off fingers and ultimately gets information out of him about where the person is. Like, he doesn't know contact names and stuff, but he knows locations. And afterwards she kills him, and she does her thing again, grabbing his face, looking in his eyes, because she likes to see the light leave their eyes, basically like there's the life leaving their body. And she's kind of a little bit like old Villanelle again. So her and Carolyn are actually hitting it off at like lunch and stuff. The whole truth and dare between them. I love the whole truth and truth. It's like, right, why do you like? What do you find so interesting about Villanelle? It's like, well, I mean, what do you find so interesting about Eve? And Villanelle's like, well, I talked to a therapist recently who said that I just like my control over her. And I love it, Karen, like, what do therapists know? You paid him to basically throw a question back at you. Villanelle's like, that's exactly what I said. I love that, like, moment between them. Even asking about Carolyn's dad, is like, oh, was your dad, like, a really, like, good, like, gay agent? And it's like, oh, yes. She's like, Daddy was very puissant with, when it came to penises. And I was like, oh, interesting. It's like, oh, are you a born-again Christian, is what she had asked Villanelle. First, Villanelle's like, do you really know everything? And she's like, what was it? But I forgot what it was. It wasn't swear to God, but she said something to God or whatever, and it was just praise to God or something like that. So I just thought that was interesting. It turns out Carolyn knows Lars. She just allocates it to, oh, he's an old flame, and it's like, is he part of the 12? And she's like, I don't know. Now that he saw me and we were face to face, he's most likely going to go underground, so I got to determine where to handle things going from there. But it's like, right, we also got to continue our truth or dare. So I dare you to air guitar. And she's kind of like doing it a little bit. And it's like, come on, do it a little bit more. Because she's like, no, it's ridiculous. It's pointless. It's like, right. The point of a dare is to be the point is to be pointless. And she finally does it. She shreds and kind of does her thing. I'm like, yeah, get into it. I love, and because she's so refined, so to see her being ridiculous is the thing, because there is ridiculousness in how reserved she is and her mannerisms and everything about that character. And it's just like, that was just ridiculous. So, and I just love a villain to be like, sorry I tried to kill you, and just, Caroline's just like, okay, and just kind of moves on. And Vlad calls her up, and she just tosses her phone, because I think she's just done with that. She's got what she needed, so it all worked out in the end, and I'm like, and I think she's been fine this all kind of pushed her in the direction where she wanted to be again. She had to make a lot of compromises in who she is. Maybe the argument is, like, this is her just being who she is. I don't know. But she didn't like where she was heading, so I think for her, it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna put all that Vlad stuff aside. It doesn't matter. I'm leaving that behind. Tosses her phone, and so she's leaving. So there's that front, and then there's the whole Eve and Helene situation where Eve goes to see Helene and obviously drops the Lars mayor thing, and it stops Helene, and she's just kind of like, oh, okay. So try to pretend like that isn't who she's looking for. But interestingly enough, she doesn't know what he looks like. She knows the name, but not his face. Interestingly enough. But now it turns into a little bit of a game. Like, okay, which one of us is going to find Lars first? Because she also throws out the whole, like, right, you got Villanelle arrested thing. And obviously Eve was like, stop. Like, this is what you do. And it's like, she didn't like, it's like, right, I've closed that chapter on the Villanelle thing. I don't need you bringing it back up. Did not appreciate when Helen finally admitted later on, yeah, I got Villanelle out, because it's like, right, you did that just because you knew what I did, and because Villanelle's useful to you, but also having her free, it just kind of, it's like, right, what is Villanelle going to do? Is Villanelle going to come after Eve? Is she just going to continue to be the constant thing in her life? I think she's trying to figure out what Eve's going to do, and like, she likes to see Eve off guard, and because Eve thinks she's in control. Like, that's the problem. Like, her and Villanelle have that back and forth, and her and Helene have that thing of like, oh, Helene's like, oh, you think you have control over me? It's like, no, I know how to push your buttons. I know how to swerve this. You think you got me figured out. Just when you think I'm turning left, I'm actually turning right, catching you off guard. I think that's kind of the dynamic they're going for. But invites her, well, first and foremost, with Yusef, they end up finding Lars. Well, at least a picture of him scrolling through all of his ex's like photos online, and it was like on a T-shirt was the only online photo they can find. And then they looked, and there was a photographer who was selling photos, but it was like her mom's photography that she was selling, and found other photos of him. So now going to Helene, who was like, right, my daughter Chloe, she's at her grandmother's. Come over, I got some good news. Kind of skips over the news. It's like, oh, I'm about to take a bath. I'm like, oh, are we about to get sexy with this? Then like Eve shaving her leg. I was like, oh, we getting real like sexy time in this place. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I thought it was interesting too, where like Helene was like, she doesn't like weakness in women, whether she won't accept it in other women, and just that's kind of seemed like that's when she's like making it seem like that's her main modus operandi. And then, like, Eve was like, all right, start stripping down. And I'm like, oh, we about to get, oh, never mind. And I love that. It's like, you expect it's like, ooh, we about to get sexy in this. And it's like, no, it's awkward. But I think that's one of those funny and weird, fun things of life of, like, when sexy time gets awkward. And it's just like her sitting in the tub. First, it's like, oh, I'm on your daughter's, like, mermaid Barbie. It's like, oh, sorry about that. And just throw it out the tub. Then it's just like, right, if you position your legs right, I was like, it just kills the mood, and just Eve's like, this is uncomfortable. I was like, Helene's like, I made soup. Do you want some? I was like, yes, I would love some. I don't know, it's just like, I think we've all had moments of like that, like, regardless, them sitting around and then dropping the news. Oh yeah, I let Villanelle out. It's like, what? Yeah, like, because we're having such a fun time too. It's like just casually like sitting down, watching like a reality like cooking show or something like that. And for her to drop that, and it's like, right, do you love this? Is this kind of what, I forgot the exact word that Eve used. She was like, is this kind of your thing? And it's like, oh, does this delight you? And she's like, no, it delights you. And I thought it was interesting when Eve kisses her, and it's like, you have no idea, like, because he was like, right, this is what, because Helene was like, this is what you want. Because it's a whole back and forth, like, is this what you want? Is this what you want? And it's like, right, you have no idea, I guess, like, don't think you have me so figured out, Helene. And just kisses her, like, twice and walks away. And it's like, you can tell Helene's, like, really enjoying this, because it's like, right, whereas, your last situation was like, right, it was just kind of a means to an end. But I think Eve serves the purposes of a means to an end, but also it is a little bit of fun for her. Once again, when Villanelle finds out about that, I'm curious to find out what the end result of that's going to be. So, a lot of really, really interesting things. Obviously, at the time I'm recording this, it's Sunday when I'm recording this. I'm going to try and get these up today. This in episode 3. The new episode is tonight, so episode 5. So I'm very excited to see where that ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.